Hello everyone, welcome to the Learning Curve SG podcast, where we talk about everything and anything regarding not just PE as well as learning. So today I'm very glad to have my colleague here, Mr. Chia Boon, who has just graduated from the instructional mentoring program in our school. So I am very interested to pick his brains to understand how his journey has been as a beginning teacher, from a beginning teacher to a full-fledged teacher who is very confident in handling his students and as well as classroom management today. So thank you so much, Mr. Chia, for joining me in the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very glad to have you. Actually, the pleasure is mine. Let's cut to the chase. I can see the growth that you have actually achieved, at St. Gabriel Secondary School from the time that you came here around 3 years ago to what you are today. And like I mentioned before, we have this instructional mentoring program that pairs you up with a senior teacher to guide you along, not just on pedagogy, but as well as workload management and also classroom management as well. Can you perhaps share with our audience how has this IMP or instructional mentoring program been for you?
Okay, I think it's a very big assurance because I think after graduating, right at the end of NIE, there were talks about how later you enter a school and then people just suddenly throw you into the deep end and then you have to learn and then pick up the ropes as fast as you can. So I think it's very comforting that the moment you enter, the message that I receive is, okay, we are dedicated to your growth. We have blocked out a time each week for us to see how we can help you, to hear you out, and then to give you advice. And I think when I heard that, I'm like, wow, okay, teaching isn't that scary of a journey, and you know that there are seniors who are willing, I shouldn't say seniors, more experienced teachers that are willing to share their advice and to pass the baton, to pass the torch forward. So I think how it has been for me, it has definitely been fruitful and nurturing, which I think is a very nice idea. Like how as a teacher you are teaching students, but as a teacher you're also learning from other teachers. So as a new teacher, you're both a teacher and a student, and I find it a very nice comparison. And then I'm also seeing how the more experienced teachers, how they speak, how they converse to inspire and bring out the best in one another, and it's something that I try to bring to the classroom as well.
Okay, thank you for sharing, and I totally agree with you. I read somewhere before that usually teachers find learning on how to improve their pedagogy, classroom management, and interactions with students better when they are able to observe a peer or a mentor doing that itself, and also having that peer and mentor guiding him or her in the development for that particular area that he or she wants to improve in. But I think the key takeaway that I have from what you have just shared is that the instructional mentoring program gives you assurance. And I think when you have assurance, the inner part of the brain that actually governs fight, flight, or freeze actually calms down. You are able to have better bandwidth, to think of how you can more creatively work on your pedagogy, your classroom management, as well as building the teacher-student relationship itself. I hope that what I've summarized is roughly what you're trying to get at.
Yeah, it's definitely correct. It definitely calms the flight mode. So it gives me that space to, okay, I have people that's looking after me and I really have the freedom and the space to really think, to focus on the students. So I don't have to focus on, well, how am I going to cope? How am I going to survive in the workplace? So all that is taken off, and like what you mentioned, it gives me a lot of space to put the students first.
Great. But maybe can we dive deeper a little bit and maybe get you to share with us what have you learned specifically in IMP if possible, share with our audience some examples. Yeah.
Okay, so the last IMP session was, I think, quite a while back, so I was trying to look through my notes.
It's okay.
But the gist is that the learning from IMP comes in so many levels. So it has the smallest levels, like small habits. When I first came in, I'm not a very organized person. So when there are students who are absent, usually I'll just, oh, okay, these are extra worksheets, and I put it aside. Then the next lesson I go, I would forget who the absentees were. So the small habits that I learned is, whenever there are absentees, I can just write down the names on the worksheets, and that helped a lot. So I feel these are things where it doesn't come to me naturally as someone who isn't as organized. So that helped me a lot. The next thing that I learned from IMP is differentiated instruction, which I think is a big idea currently. I know what differentiated instruction aims to achieve, but it's always the how that is difficult for me. And even though people can give advice on, oh, you can do this, you can do this, or you can do this, but to be able to hear it from someone who has actually practiced it and painted a very clear, detailed picture of how he actually conducted it in class was a very illuminating. Like when I heard it, I'm like, oh, so that's how you do it.
Okay. Maybe can you share share a little bit more specifically what were some of the things that you have differentiated in your class to help your students learn better?
You mean what I have done or what I have learned? Because those two, I'm still trying to bridge. So currently it's what I have learned and then what I'm trying.
Or what you have tried? Have you tried out anything with regards to differentiated instructions to help your students learn better?
So what I do currently, I feel is differentiated, but it is different from what my mentor taught me. So what my mentor taught me was he has different worksheets. So the worksheets would assess the same concepts, but he has three different levels.
Three tiers.
Three tiers. So the first one is where a lot of details and hints are given. Then the second level is where not so many hints, and then the third level is probably like the exam standard. So for me, having this is just the fourth year, and I think the first 2 or 3 years were really just coming out with the ideas, thinking of the base skeleton of my lessons. So I couldn't delve too much into differentiating my worksheets like what my mentor did. But I do see the value in differentiating my instruction. So how I do it is I let the students learn at their own pace. That's what I seek to achieve. So granted, there's a lot of chaos in the classroom, but what I try to do is I go with the flow and try to manage the chaos, because I feel that more learning takes place where there is chaos, where everyone is able to learn at their own pace, as compared to where it's more structured and where the slower students will have to force themselves to keep up, and where the faster students might feel that the pace is too slow. So my version of differentiation that I try to do now is I give out the worksheets, I let them discuss amongst their friends. If they feel that their friends are learning at the same pace, great. If they feel that their table buddy is learning at a much faster pace than they are, I allow them to move freely to find a group where they're able to learn effectively and at the same pace. So that's what I try to do for differentiation.
I felt that what you have shared has elements of differentiated instructions, because in what you have shared, when the student has a choice of either working with himself or by himself, or working with a buddy who is actually stronger in the assignment that they are doing, as well as having a choice to pace his own learning, is basically differentiation in terms of the process of learning. So in that sense, I felt that what you have done also has elements of differentiated instructions lah.
Thank you.
And but I think moving forward, hopefully you can try out also what your mentor has done by
Definitely.
giving tiers, all right, by creating different worksheets so that students can also learn at different pace, and therefore again there is a differentiation in terms of the process of learning. Yeah. Okay, so moving on, can I just ask you, what were your beliefs about teaching and learning initially when you entered the education workforce, and have they changed since you joined teaching?
When I think of change, I would think it's more of a evolving or a refinement of my beliefs. So when I first joined, so before I joined teaching, there was a YouTube video by this astronomer, physicist, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Okay.
Then what he said was what left a huge impact, a huge impression on me. He was saying something along the lines of every child, when they are born, they are naturally curious, but usually it is the adults that it kind of suppress the curiosity. And the example he gave was when a child topples over a cup of milk, the adult usually scolds the child. Then that was when I got to think the adult scolds the child maybe because the adult knows that the milk might dirty the place, make the place sticky, and the adult knows the amount of effort needed to clean up. But perhaps from the child's point of view, he or she may not have had that life experience, may not have had enough life experience to know what the consequences are, and he may just be curious about how the water is flowing, how when something topples, it leaves a puddle like that, and what can happen from there. And it made me think of my own experience when I was learning. Many times when we are curious about something, we just want to try. We don't know what the consequences are. We are curious, we want to know more about something, but it's usually the adults that tell us, no, you cannot do that. And if I'm lucky, then people may explain it in a way that I understand, and then, oh, okay, I should not do that. But I also have had experiences where they say, no, don't do it just because I say so. And reflecting on that, it made me really feel that, oh, wow, as an adult, I really have a huge impact on whether the students really want to learn or whether they are just following whatever I'm instructing. So the belief is that every student, they are naturally curious, and it's how I would want to go about bringing out that curiosity and being very mindful not to suppress any curiosity as long as it is productive. And how it has evolved, how it has been refined, I guess, is how my original impression of a classroom management is like. My original impression is a classroom where all the students are seated and they're seated right there, and then they're asking questions, raising hands, and waiting for their turn before the teacher calls on them, and then they answer. And after I joined teaching, I realized that it's far from the truth. If they're excited, they'll be like, oh, me, and then they just blurt out answers like that. So currently what I'm exploring is, instead of classroom management where I enforce discipline, I acknowledge that discipline is important, but I'm also looking from I'm considering something like positive chaos management, because I think, like differentiated instruction, every single individual is different, and it's very difficult for me to expect that they can all behave the same way. So if allowing for differentiated instruction and there are 40 individuals, I think chaos is inevitable, and it's how I, as a teacher, would be managing that chaos, that energy, to direct them in a particular direction towards learning and growing.
I like the point that you made about curiosity, because I find that curiosity is a trigger which will motivate us to want to learn. And as we explore our curiosity, it is very natural that we make mistakes. And in the process of making mistakes, there naturally will have some chaos involved. I think it is perfectly fine to have that kind of chaos involved, whereby a particular learner is actually exploring the curiosity of what he is trying to learn within, of course, the lesson objectives and the syllabus that we have. So I think the issue is how to actually manage this chaos and channel the energy from curiosity to making to exploration and making mistakes in accordance to the objectives and outcomes of the lesson itself. And I think one key factor that may help you, if you don't mind me sharing,
sure.
is understanding your students well. And in order to understand your students well, I think positive teacher-student relationship is inevitable. And in order to have that, we need to open up our communication channels with them. So it is a long process, okay, to get to know our students well, because communication may not be easy. May not be easy. But I think it's good that we spend some time to invest, okay, in the positive teacher-student positive teacher-student relationship, so that you may be able to achieve your vision and dream of using curiosity to get your students motivated to learn about what they are supposed to learn. And I think research has shown that if students or learners are able to explore, make mistakes, explore again, continue to make mistakes, the learning becomes deeper and it sits with them for a longer duration within them. So I totally agree with your philosophy and belief in how students should be learning.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. But one more thing before we end off the session, I just want to check with you, what are your thoughts about assessment in supporting the learning of our students during lessons? Yeah, do you think, because our school has been talking about assessment literacy as well as alternative assessment over the past 6 months. Have you have any thoughts about assessment in supporting learning of our students?
I don't know if I'm interpreting the question correctly. Feel free, please correct me if my interpretation is
it's a
wrong.
conversation.
It's my interpretation is assessment definitely is needed in learning. Otherwise, if I teach and then students say, "Oh yeah, I understand," and then when the test comes, they can't do it. Then there is a gap in what they think they know and what they actually know. So in terms of that, I think assessment is definitely important. Something that I'm just wondering about is alternative assessments, because sometimes they can bring it home. Then I know it wouldn't be easy, but something that I'm wondering would an alternative assessment be a fair assessment, because some people may have more support outside of the classroom, and that may eventually lead to an increase in grades. So the eventual grades that they get from the alternative assessment, is it really, how much of it is theirs, how much of it is
supported by someone else?
And then whether there's the fairness and stuff. So I acknowledge that it's a very difficult issue, and it's just something that I'm thinking about, and I believe I'll be thinking about it for quite a while.
I guess what you have shared, is definitely valid and of concern. I think you brought up rightfully the issue of fairness, and I think we have to go back to what assessment actually means. It really depends on whether the assessment is to determine how much the students have already learned, which is summative. And therefore, in that sense, maybe fairness will be a very, very huge factor involved. However, if we think of assessment as a support to help the students learn, in that sense, the assessment is to help form the learning. Perhaps when the students, try out a particular activity or particular project, he goes to someone for additional support to help him achieve what he needs to achieve. I personally don't see that as a big issue. Because if like what you shared just now in the earlier example, a particular student, okay, goes to another peer or buddy in the classroom for support to help with the work. It's something similar to what you have just shared.
Correct.
Yeah. So it depends on the context. So if the assessment is for learning, which is basically to help form learning, okay, I think it is perfectly fine to ask for additional help, regardless of where he wants to get help from, especially in project work. Yeah, but of course, if it's an assessment, if it's an assessment project, which requires him to submit it at the end of a particular time frame, and then there will be a result, okay, which will go into his overall grades, then the issue of fairness is definitely something that is valid that you have brought up. Yeah. So my point is, it depends on the context. Yeah. And if you don't mind me sharing, I feel that assessment is important to help our students learn because it helps them get, okay, the data that is necessary to know where they are at right now.
Yep.
Yeah. And that data, okay, tells them whether they have made the mistake or not. And from there on, they can actually make the adjustments to achieve the outcome that they want. And then once they achieve already, then it is maybe your opportunity to tell the person, hey, it's time for you to move forward, okay, and do something that is, or learn something that is harder, so that he can actually continue his progress in learning.
Move to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah, correct. Yeah, so yeah, thank you for sharing. But I think assessment is always something that we will always have conversations and debate about. But I think at the end of the day, we hope that it is something that will help students to improve in their learning process. Yeah, which will benefit them in the longer run.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've shared a lot, but I think the most crucial question now is, what is one advice that you may have for our current beginning teachers or new beginning teachers who are coming into our school?
That's a very tough question. I think when I first read it, it was difficult because as a new teacher, there are so many things that you don't know, and there are so many things that you don't know that you don't know.
True.
So it was really difficult for me to find one advice. But after distilling, I think the most important thing is whenever we feel upset with students, which very sure you will, okay, is that I think it is to hold the impulse to scold students when okay, maybe I'll just not be long-winded. The crucial thing is when we feel upset, instead of jumping to conclusions, it is to put ourselves in the students' shoes, thinking about the possible struggles that they may be facing, both inside the classroom and outside, and ask ourselves, if we were in the students' shoes, what kind of teacher would have inspired us and given us the strength to become better than we were before? And then for us to be that teacher that the student needs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I think.
Thank you so much. Very inspiring. Okay, so what I think you have just shared is, when we are angry with students, we don't jump into conclusions.
Yeah.
We don't get angry. See it as an opportunity to know our students better, understand their struggles first to help them be better than before. All right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Boon. So I guess this wraps up our episode today, and I'm really happy that Boon has shared so much with us, and I've learned a lot from him as well. So hopefully what we have shared in this video can be of help to you also. So till then, we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye. All the best.